Hey everyone, welcome in. I'm Captivate, and it's been a little bit since I posted. I've been busy working on a project that I'm really excited to share with you all. I'll make sure that you all hear about that in the next probably couple weeks. I'll have everything finished up, but jumping back into the content creation now, I just recently went to Florida for the regional down there. And I got a top 32 finish, so I wanted to share that all with you. I'll have my matchups posted on the screen somewhere up here that you can look at those and go over those. I have them posted on my Twitter, so you can go check that out. I'll have the link for that down in the description below. So I'm going to go over my deck list now. I did decide to take Blue Purple Luffy. I think going into this past weekend, Rayleigh and then also Zoro were the two most popular decks that I think people were expecting to perform really well. And just through all of my testing and playing, I kind of came to the conclusion that I felt like Blue Purple Luffy really didn't have any really bad matchups. So I thought it would be a really good deck to take into a jungle type format. And I also played this deck a lot last set, so I had a lot of experience on it. So I figured that would do me well going into this set. Just going over the deck list, I'll go ahead and start off. So we have one Pudding and then four Nami. These are pretty standard. I would have loved to have not played Pudding, but seeing as though Florida was a 2-day event and an open deck list on the second day, I wanted to include one Pudding just because I knew into that I could very easily get abused if they found out that my deck was not playing Pudding. So that really was the reason for one Pudding. Seeing how Luffy did over the weekend, I could definitely see an increase in amount of Luffy's going into a tournament, and Pudding is really, really good in the mirror right now because it lost Lin with the ban list, and you used to be able to use Lin to put giants into your life, and then that way if you got puddinged and then you had a giant in life, then whenever you took the life it would still be there and they wouldn't be able to get rid of it. So pudding is really potent now. You can just pudding them and push for game with the bodies that you have on board. So I would possibly think about pushing the pudding up, but for now we played one, and then four Nami. I think four Nami is a minimum. I don't think you could play any less than four Nami with the way the deck plays. And then we have the top end here. So I ended up playing outside of the Sanjis because this is going to be in every deck. I played 7 bosses. This really is the biggest part about the deck that I think is unsolved right now. Going into the weekend, I know that Mihawk and Luffy are kind of the top end that was doing well, and a lot of people were testing where they were playing 4 Mihawk and then 3 Luffy, and that's where I started. Mihawk is really good. I find that the issue that I have with Mihawk is there's a lot of times where you just can't play him or you die. So specifically, if you play him on like your first 9-dawn turn, then he's great. He can bottom whatever they played, and then you get a big tempo play off of that. But if you don't see him on that first 9-dawn turn, it's often too scary to actually play him. So I decided to cut him, and then I got rid of him entirely and tried just playing with the Doflamingo and the Luffy. And I felt like there was a couple times where I was like, dang, if only I saw Mihawk specifically into Green Purple Luffy. And then also Bonnie is another one that I think he's really good into. There was just times in those matchups where I felt like I was missing him. Going forward, I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to take him out of the deck or increase him. I would love to be able to play the deck without him, but going into this weekend, knowing that there would be just a big variety of decks, I thought there would be a lot of times that he would come up and then just be able to bottom a 7 cost. I also was playing the Rush Luffy, so in the Treasure Cup the weekend before, I actually played Blue Purple Luffy without this 8 cost Luffy. I realized how difficult this deck was to play into black decks, specifically Lucci and Teach without the 8 cost Luffy, giving you Rush and then a way to bounce like a Kuzan from Lucci or the Burgesses from Teach. He's really good in that, and then he's also very good into Rayleigh, just being able to bounce their Luffys that they play or their Sanjis, just getting one of their 6k swings off board while also getting to rush into another character or rushing into their life. He's really good. I think I would definitely include at least 2 copies of the Luffy for top end. I really like him. We also have 4 Sanji. I think this is standard. I don't think you'll ever see deck lists of Luffy without 4 Sanji. He really is the backbone of the deck, and ultimately what makes the deck so potent. I'm playing 3 Zorojuro. There is another card that's very similar to Zorojuro called It's to Die For. I can go ahead and pull that up here. This is another card that I was experimenting with, and the main reason for that is in the Zoro matchup, the Green Zoro matchup, this Zorojuro is really bad. If you play it on your 3-dawn turn, then on 4 they can Kuina, rest it, swing 8 into it, and then it dies. And if you play it on your 4-dawn turn, then their optimal play, regardless of if you play the Zorojuro or not, is going to be the 5 cost Tashigi. So they'll rest it, swing into it, kill it, and then you don't get to ramp. So you really just throw away 1 card for Zoro to kill it. And then also matchups like Lucci and Sakazuki, and then Teach even, because he's playing the 4 cost Shiryu for Really, there's times where if you go first and play this on 3, you can just get rid of it on 4. I was experimenting with It's to Die For. This card is really good, and it is particularly good into Green Purple Luffy, where if they play a 6,000 power character on their 4-don turn, when you're 5-don turn, you can double ramp. So if you ramp on 3 and then double ramp on 5, that lets you triple ramp to 8, which really, honestly, if you're triple ramping, I don't think any deck in the game is going to be beating you. And then for our 2Ks, I went with Usohachi and then Frenosuke. You might notice I'm only playing 6 2Ks, and that is because I'm running so many of these counter events, which we'll get to in just a minute. Usohachi is probably the best purple 2K. He just allows you to push for game. There's a lot of different decks that you just play him, rest their blocker, and then push for game that way. So definitely include 4 of him. And then for Frenosuke, I actually Sanji was the original 2K that everyone was running last set, this 2K Sanji blocker, and I realized that I really never play this out of hand. The effect of having 2 or fewer Dawn cards doesn't ever come up in this deck because you just ramp to 10 and then you never go less than that unless you play like Giant or something. But because of your leader effect, you don't ever want to go below that 8 Dawn. And then he also cannot be played off of Sanji. Not that you'd ever want to play the Frenosuke off Sanji, but the Frenosuke at least gives you a body that you can rush with into specifically the black decks. Lucci and Teach, sometimes you just need one extra swing to go through. So he's not exactly super relevant, but it's a little bit more relevant than the Sanji. And then he also has the Straw Hat tag so that you can grab him with your leader ability. That's really all you're going to be doing with these 2Ks, is using them as 2Ks. We have Bonclay. He's a staple of the deck. Obviously, you would play him at 4. He gives you an active Dawn on play. He's particularly good into Zoro, because on 4, when you play him, you get the active Dawn. They will likely kill him, but that's fine because we got the Dawn anyways for playing him, rather than the Zoro where we don't get the Dawn. This is one of the newer additions to the deck since the ban list. There was a Don Quixote build that got popular last set and actually won a regional towards the beginning of the set. But this package right here is really, really good right now, particularly because we're playing so many events, and this Rosinante just gives us so much survivability in the late game. He says, on play, you may trash 1 event card from your hand and then draw 2 cards. So what you can do if you have like a God Thread, or maybe you have 2 or 3 Bagwas that are just clogging up your hand, on play, you just trash one of those events to draw 2 cards, and then at the end of your turn, if you have 7 or more Dawn, you get to stand 2 of them as active. On your 10 Dawn turn, what you'll do is you can leader effect, grab Sanji, and then leave Doflamingo on the top, draw the Rosinante, and then Sanji into Doflamingo, Dawn -1 to play the Rosinante, trash a card, and then draw 2. So you get to put out a 9 cost, an 8 cost, a 5 cost. So 9,000 power, 9,000 power, 6,000 power, these 3 bodies on board on 9 Dawn, and then restand 2 Dawn. So if you don't use your other Dawn, you'll have 3 Dawn open, allowing you to use like a Giant and a Bagua, or, 2 geared 2s and a Giant. You get to have a lot of survivability with the Dawn. And then this gets to compound. So what you can do once you hit 10 Dawn, if you already have played one of these like big Sanji combos, you can, go like Sanji. You can even Sanji into Rosinante, restand 2 Dawn, and then what you can do on your 10 Dawn turn is go like Nami and Rosinante, or even play like double Nami if you really just want to be defensive, as long as you have a Rosinante on board. And then this allows you to use all of your Dawn, all 10 Dawn. You can attach it to your leader, swing 7, play these 2 for 10. It just allows you to be get the most value out of your Dawn, and then you restand 2 at the end, so you get to use your events and then not die. As I was saying, the Doflamingo here does have on play Dawn -1, play out a 5 cost or lower Don Quixote pirate character card, so we get to play out the Rosinante. There is another thing that I am experimenting with, and that is the blue Doflamingo card. I was a big fan of this card last set, but I just couldn't find the space for it before this event. This says look at 5 cards and then may put them on the top or bottom, so it's just good in the early game to give you a little bit more consistency, knowing what you're drawing into. And if you look at your top 5 and then just find that there are a bunch of bricks, you can just put them on the bottom so you don't just die that way. But what's special about this is he is a Don Quixote pirate, and this Doflamingo is not color locked, so we can play him off of the 8 cost Doflamingo. So just something to think about, and something I'll be exploring in the future for sure. And then 1 Red Rock. I think 1 Red Rock as a minimum. I don't think you can play any less than 1. I would have loved to have played 1 Gravity Blade, but the list was just really tight. Going forward for Dallas at Nets, I'm definitely going to try and refine the list a little bit more since we have a little bit more time if I decide this is what I'm going to take. But yeah, one Red Rock, I don't think... there was actually 1 or 2 games over this weekend that I used it to just bottom deck a blocker because I didn't have Usohachi and I needed to go for game. So it was just another way to go for game that way. Especially if you have a Luffy on board, you can bounce a blocker with this Luffy. And then if you Red Rock like a 5-cost blocker, then you can, you know, bottom deck like a Nami. Or in Bonnie, for instance, you can bottom deck their 5-cost Bonnie and then swing with Luffy to bounce their 2-cost Resonante. So yeah, I definitely would include at least 1 Red Rock, and I would like to make space for 1 Gravity Blade. That's definitely something I'll change going forward. We have 4 Giants. I don't think I need to say anything about this card. It's probably the most broken card in the game right now that Moria's been banned. But yeah, this card is insane. It's ultimately the reason why Blue Purple Luffy is even viable, in my opinion. I don't think this deck would exist really without Giant. Just being able to get out of huge swings while not losing any cards in hand, it just allows you to build massive hands over the course of the game. And then 4 Gear 2, this card is just another way to ramp as well as being a counter. It's going to be the last card you typically use to ramp because you want to hold it and use it as counter. Another thing that's special about this card is it does not have a cost of Dawn minus. So a lot of times what you'll do is on like your 4 Dawn turn, for instance, you can play Zorojoro and then leave 1 Dawn standing. So if they decide to go like 7 or 8 at you, you can just use this Gear 2 as basically another 2k. So it's pretty easy to float 1 Dawn, and then in that way it just gives you another 2k. Because we are only running 6 actual 2Ks. 3 Bagua. This was a card that I was actually had at 4 for the longest time. And then literally the morning of the event, I decided to change one of my Baguas for another Hell's Judgment, which we'll get to in just a second. But yeah, I really like this card at 4. There's just a lot of times where you can leave 2 Dawn up, and then a lot, like some opponents won't notice that you had left Dawn up, or they won't think that you're going to Thunder Bagua. Now that Blue Purple Luffy's become a little bit more popular, I definitely think people will play around it a little bit more. But even just having the trigger of ramping a Dawn is huge, and then oftentimes you hit that, you know, every couple games you'll hit that trigger. Either way, at the late game, because we have Resonante restanding Dawn, and then oftentimes you can just play like a Nami and then leave 5 Dawn standing, it just gives you a lot of survivability so that on the same turn you can go Giant, Dawn -2, use a Bagua, get 1 back, and then if you have Doflamingo on board, you can use his effect that says once per turn on your opponent's turn, you may rest 1 of your Dawn cards and add up to 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck. So yeah, this really, it lets you counter out of huge swings while not Dawn minusing like Giant. So yeah, like I was saying, you can go Giant, Dawn -2. If you Bagua, you get 1 Dawn back, and then you can use Doflamingo's effect to pay 1 Dawn to get another Dawn back, so now you're back at 10 Dawn. And if you have the Dawn standing, you can use Giant again to go -2, so now you're at 8 Dawn, and then you still get to leader effect on the next turn. Really, really like Thunder Bagua. I will likely put it back to 4, find a way to put it to 4, but ended up playing 3, and that was fine for this weekend. Hell's Judgment, this card is insane right now. I think it was a combination of people not knowing that many decklists were playing this, as well as people just not playing around it correctly. But there's a lot of 8k bodies right now, specifically the 8-cost Mihawk that both Bonnie and Zoro are playing, and oftentimes if they have like 1 or 2 of these on board, they just swing 1 for 8k, and then you can use Hell's Judgment and just minus both. There's a lot of times where just this 1 card gets you out of 2 like big swings. This card definitely overperformed for sure. I was really happy that I made the change of 1 Bagua to the Judgment literally the day of the event, so that worked out really well for me. Being able to minus 3000 power to 2 characters or their leader is huge, and it's for the turn. So specifically against Zoro, you can put that -3 on Zoro, and then just they lose a lot of value that way because they have to either put more Dawn on it, and they can't just do these big jams with the restand event that they typically do. And then finally, the last card, we do have 3 God Thread. I would like to play this at 4. There's just a lot of cards that you might have noticed that I would like to play at more copies, but the deck list is just so tight. I would love to play like 55 or 60 cards in this deck, just being able to look at the top 5 every turn, but 3 was fine for this card. I'll probably leave it at 3 just because I think the other cards I want to add are more important than this, and this felt fine at 3. Realistically, you only need to see this on like specific turns, like your 5 or 6 Dawn turn, and then outside of that, all you're doing is trashing it with Resonante or with a Giant to get it out of your hand. But yeah, this was the deck list that I played this weekend. I ended up finishing top 32. We played top cut against another Blue Purple Luffy that was running 3 puddings, and I could not escape getting puddinged there. But yeah, going forward, I'm not entirely sure if I'm gonna play Blue Purple Luffy, but it's definitely looking that way depending on what happens with the meta. I love this deck. I have so much fun playing this deck. Yeah, I hope you all enjoyed the video. I'm gonna give you like 1 or 2 games just to look at the deck play on ranked. If you are interested, I am offering coaching on Metafy. I'll have the link in the description below, and there will be a discount inside of my Discord. So go join my Discord, and then you'll be able to get a link there. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoy the video. So Blue Purple Luffy is pretty hard if you don't see Mihawks, if I'm being honest. They really have to see, like, if they see their Sanji puddings and you don't see Mihawks, this matchup can get a little bit scary. It was pretty favored last set because of the Linlin and Katakuri. It was hard for them to really do anything. He is going first. Whoever gets to go first obviously has a little bit of an advantage. We do have the pudding and we have double bond clay. Really, I'm not keeping this because of the pudding. I'm keeping this because I have the 2 bond clays to ramp with. So we'll bond clay on 4 and then ramp to 7. And then we could bond clay again to push us to that 8 so we can leader effect on the next turn. Yeah, obviously nothing to do on this turn. And he does get a Luffy Taro there. So we don't have any counter events. If we had a gear 2, I probably would use it just to not have to take the damage here. We can swing 6, and then we'll play the Bond Clay. Just ramp 1, active. So we are going to our 7 Dawn turn. There's another thing that you can do on 7. You can play the Nami. If this was a Sanji, I would almost always play the Nami because we can just set up a Sanji play on the next turn, and him doing that is fine. The Bond Clay really isn't going to do too much. We'd be able to copy like the Luffy Taro or whatever he ended up playing. So if we go Bond Clay here, we ramp another one, we go to 4. Uh, do I want to Bond Clay or do I want to Nami here? So if we Nami, we get to have 2 Dons standing. We do have the Hell's Judgment. That really doesn't matter right now. I think what I am going to do is just go ahead and... so if we go 6... Yeah, I like the idea of doing the Nami. We can Bond Clay, and then get our leader effect, but this does at least get us a blocker on board. He's going to 7, so he's definitely going to Sanji Pudding, or definitely Luffy Taro, likely into a Sanji and Pudding. I'm just going to go ahead and start with a 6 swing here. And what we can do is just play the Nami, and then, yeah, so we do actually get the Bagua. So I don't have anything to put on top here, so what we're going to do is just bottom the 2 God Threads, and then now we leave the Tudon up for the Bagua. Realistically, he probably should not swing at us this turn, knowing that we will get the 2 we're at least showing Bagua because we have 2 life and then Tudon. So I think here, unless he's really going to push, there really isn't any reason for him to swing here. Likely just play this and then pass. Okay, so he actually does swing. So this is a 6. This is going to be a 6 or a 7. I'm just going to go ahead and Bagua this one, just so that we get to that 8, and then we can leader effect on the next turn. And can't use the effect there, so we can give the 2k, and then another 7. I was not expecting him to swing this, but I guess we don't really have anything good to swing back at it with. I don't really want to take this, so I think pudding could be kind of good here. I think I will just take this. I don't want to show that we only have the no 2Ks. All right, so we actually hit the combo here. So what we do is we take the Sanji, and then we're going to put the Rosinante on top. We would put the Rosinante on top, but we already do have one in hand. I'm going to trash the gear 2, and then that will draw us into the other 2. So draw for turn, Sanji into Dofi, play Rosie. Rosie, trash gear 2, and then draw these 2. And then that will leave us with 3 Dawn up. I'm going to start with a 6 at the Zoro. Okay, and do we need the Nami? So we have Hell's Judgment Gear 2. We'll have another Gear 2. We'll have Hell's Judgment Gear 2 Giant. There is a world where he could rest both of our Dawn, and then we would just use the Giant. I think I will go ahead and just swing that there. Yeah, just kill that. And then now we can deploy, use, play that, trash Gear 2, draw 2. And then we will pass, restand 2 of our Dawn. And then we can use the Doflamingo effect. I think this card is not printed correctly because I believe in person it says on opponent's attack, not just opponent's turn once per turn. But basically when they attack, we will trigger this to get one active Dawn. So pay 1 active to get 1 active. So we just ramp 1, but we don't actually gain any active Dawn. So on our next turn, we obviously don't know what any of the 5 cards are that we will giant into. Radio Knife, interesting. I know that was pretty popular last set, but I didn't think that was really something people were playing right now. And I'm really not scared of dying here, because like if he uses all 4 of this Dawn to rest 2 of my Dawn, obviously we don't die. He swings 7 into 6, so we'll go ahead and use this so that we can giant. So this is one of the things that I was talking about in the deck profile where I can just Hell's Judgment here, -3 this, -3 this, and then it basically just loses all of his attacks this turn. So now this becomes 4, he can go 5, 6, 7, he would have to put, 2 or 3 Dawn on it. Yep, so he decides to just pass there, so we can leader effect again. Okay, so we did lose the Rosinante, so I think I need to get another Rosinante on board here. Or at least I need to leave Dawn standing. I don't really want to... I mean, so I could Sanji into Doflamingo, but I really don't have the board space for it, and quite honestly, I don't need to do that. So I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the Gear 2, and then I'm actually going to bottom this, because my plan is to play either Nami or Rosinante, I think is fine. At this point, once we have our bodies on board, we've essentially won the game into most matchups, and all you're really going to do is you just hit with everything you have on board, play either Nami or Rosinante, and then pass with enough Dawn that you don't die. So we can start with a 6, and we'll just go 6, 6, and then either 9 or 10. I could make them 10s if I want to really push. The fact that he only has 1 Luffy on board, I'm really not too scared of anything right now. And then, so what I would typically do on a 10 Dawn turn is I would just go like Rosinante, trash a Gear 2, play Nami, because this is 10 Dawn, and then I'll get to restand 2. Yeah, so he ends up leaving there just a handful of counter events, nothing really relevant, didn't play Sanji and Pudding, so not really much happening here. But yeah, we would have just gone 6, 6, 9, 9. And as I was saying with the Rosinante and the Nami, if I were to play both, I would restand 2, and then if he were to use like the Dead Man's Game and then rest both, and then leader effect, I could get into a bit of trouble here where he can just hit me with leader and Luffy, and then now all of these counter effects become bricks in my hand. So probably just play it safe. We could just play like Nami, leave 5 standing, so that if he were to rush, 2 of it, then I still have these 3 Dawn and plenty of counter to get out of anything that he does. But yeah, that was Green Purple Luffy. Admittedly, he really didn't do too much this game, but this is kind of the play pattern of Blue Purple Luffy in OP12. Okay, so we do have the mirror, and I'm going to go first. I think going first is still better, even with the ban list. So we have, what we're really looking for is 1 ramp card. That's really all we're looking for is 1 ramp card. So we do have the God Thread, and then we have Rosinante that we can play on 8. So I'm going to keep this. Hope that we can draw into a Doflamingo. But this is good. So what's changed since the last set for anyone that was playing this deck, specifically in the mirror, is we don't have Linlin and Katakuri. So getting Katakuri on board on your 8 on turn was a pretty big tempo shift that you would get. So we have God Thread that I'm going to play on 5, and I only need to ramp once. So I think here we just go ahead and put 2 on leader, swing 8, and then he can either counter or take this. So we don't have Linlin, as I was saying, so we can't heal. So what that means is we need to defend our lives a little bit better. And then putting lethals are very much a thing now. Because what you used to be able to do was would use Linlin and then set your top life so that you could heal. So I'm gonna go ahead and give the Bon Clay. You would heal with Linlin a giant into life so that if they did putting you, you would still have the giant in life here. So what ends up happening is if you go too low too fast, yeah, and this is why I don't think you ever should play Zoro on 4. I mean, obviously, if he had no other choice, he should make me have the God Thread. Um, but yeah, so if you go too low too fast, what happens is you have this big hand of all the counter events that you grab through your leader effect and things like that. And then it's really easy for them to just play pudding. And now if you're at 1 life and they have these like 2 or 3 9K bodies, they have like 10, 10, 10, they have these 3 or 4 huge swings that you have to counter out of, and you have 1 life. So if they putting you into, like a hand of 5 cards that don't have a lot of counter, or you whiff getting an extra counter event, it's really easy to just end up dying. So I really like in the early stages of the game just staying like super healthy unless you're really looking for something. But because I already have the Rosinante, I think it's all right for me to counter out pretty aggressively. I mean, obviously I could take this looking for the Doflamingo, but the odds of me having the Doflamingo in this one card really aren't super, super high. And they are at 6 Dawn. They have not ramped yet, so that kind of tells me this is probably going to go in our favor. And they do put those on top, so they're at 6. If they were at 7, that would be a lot better for them, knowing that they could just set up like a Sanji combo there. So we're gonna play Rosinante for 5. I'm gonna leave like 1 or 2 Dawn up. I think what we do here is we just swing because we're gonna pitch the Bagua here, I think, to draw 2 cards. So I think I'm just going to swing 7 and just check, check if they have a 2K. Okay, so they gear 2 that. Doesn't give us too much information, and then we will go ahead and just pitch. We can pitch the Bagua or the gear 2. I think I'll just pitch the gear 2 here because we do have the 2 Dawn up, and then that does draw us into 2 more counter events, and we'll restand 2 with the Rosinante. So now we have double Sanji, which is really good for us, obviously. And you can see our hand size obviously is not as big as theirs. But realistically, in the mirror, if you're turning your, 9K bodies and they're swinging into them, you're going to win that more often than not. You really typically just need to push life. So we don't want a giant here because we are only at 8 Dawn. We could take this or we could bog with this. Very likely, very possible that it could be a Luffy or a Rosinante. Those are the 2 best plays that he has. If we take this and then he plays Luffy, we can just Bagua. Yeah, I think I'm fine to take this. The trigger doesn't mean anything. All right, so he does swing the Nami. I'm going to go ahead and just Bagua this, and then very likely he's going to play the Luffy. That would probably be the worst thing for us because we did not have a 1K for the Nami. And then we do have this giant that we can use next turn, but obviously I don't want to use it now because we would not get to use leader effect. And I have not leader affected yet, so I'm not sure what my top is going to be. Hopefully we'll find something that we can Sanji into. One thing that is good about this deck is like, even if you Sanji into a Rosinante or a Nami, that's still pretty good value. Okay, so that turn was fine. We have 2 events here. I'm definitely going to Luffy into the Luffy. So this is one thing that I was talking about, where technically there is a line to like putting lethal here, because he's gonna have 3 swings, I have 2 life, so technically I could die. I'm gonna go ahead and grab the Zorojuro just so that we have that for one of the 6K swings, and then I'm gonna draw into the gear 2, play Sanji into the Luffy, and then we can actually just go ahead and pitch the Red Rock to bounce the Bon Clay so that he doesn't get to swing that. He has 5 in hand, so I think we actually could just push for getting rid of this Nami. Yep. And then now we will go ahead and do this. And then I think we can just do that. The Red Rock was very good in the past because you really wanted to Red Rock the Katakuris, but now that Katakuri doesn't exist in this deck anymore, there's nothing that pressing to bottom deck because getting to block with it every turn just generated a lot of value over the course of the game. Whereas maybe if he plays like one boss this turn, I could Red Rock it, but I'm already ahead at that point. And if he were to play two, I wouldn't want to spend my turn. I wouldn't want to spend my turn getting rid of one to leave one, and then he plays two again, you know. Okay, so this card actually is terrible in the mirror. He doesn't get punished for it now, but if I were to have a Mihawk, you can just Mihawk the Kyros. Obviously, if he has nothing better to play, but that is one of the use cases of having Kyros in your deck. Okay, so we do get to do the full combo here. I grab the Sanji. I'm going to draw into the Rosinante. We'll play Sanji into Doflamingo, and then Doflamingo will play Rosinante. Off of that, I'm going to pitch... I'd like to pitch the Bagua. I actually don't need to pitch anything. We're going to have 3 Dawn standing. I think I can pitch the Gear 2. Yeah, I'll pitch the Gear 2. I don't want to use... Yeah, I'll pitch Hell's Judgment, because Hell's Judgment really isn't going to do anything. And then we're obviously just going to start with the 6s here. One thing we could do is go like 10-10, play Rosinante, restand 2. That is definitely a play that we could do. We probably could push him to 1 for sure. I think we're going to push him to 1 anyways. So I think what we'll do is just swing 8. I don't need to use the effect. There's nothing to bounce. Okay, so he giants that swing. So this 9 is definitely going to go through, I would say, unless he has two 2Ks. Yeah, and then now we can go ahead and hit the full combo. So even if he were to putting us here, so he would have 6 Dawn, and then he has 3 swings. So, you know, he could go like 10, 10, 10. So we basically just need to hope that we draw into any counter event. If he were to putting us here, any of the counter events, we don't have a 1K. But I am going to go ahead and use that. And then... All right, so we have to take that. And then now we have a full board, so I think we're definitely going to push for game on the next turn. Okay, so he does bottom that. We could play Nami. I think Nami leaves us open to dying to pudding. But I'm going to go ahead and just set the top like I'm going to play Nami. Because I'm going to figure out... Okay, yeah, so he does end up leaving there. We're going to take Nami, and then we could go... So 10, 10, 10, 10, and then we would have another... We could go 10, 11. So yeah, he always dies there. 1 Dawn open. We just go 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 11. But yeah, that's the mirror. He didn't end up ramping, so we were obviously like pretty ahead there. But really, the key takeaways from this mirror compared to last set is you really want to stay healthy. And then one of the things that I found is you want to just use like your counters rather than your counter events. So it gives you just a little bit more of a probability to draw into a counter event if or when you end up getting puddinged.